So why don't we get started? So welcome everyone. I know many of you are joining the session, but again, I just introduced myself as Nadine Stanley Smoka. I'm one of the I am the Physician Systems Team Lead for the Expanse Project. So I welcome you to this breakout session. So Erin and I thought we would love to showcase just a little bit more functionality, and I know James, Maria, and Erin did a wonderful presentation, and Rico, of course, at our general session. And so this session is a little bit more intimate, and we can recap and give you a little bit more of what the system has to offer. So if everyone's okay, I'll just jump in and share my screen. Hi, Erin. There you are.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm back.
That's okay. I'm just going to share my screen. Just let me know that you can see the screen okay. Is my screen showing?
Yep, you're good.
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. So we'll get started. So what I want to showcase is that when we first launched into Meditech Expanse, and so I'm just going to show you what the Meditech Expanse icon could look like. So like our current state Meditech, usually have an icon on your desktop. So whether that's in your lower level footer bar when you're on site at the hospital and you can access the Meditech, you will also be able to do that. It will be an icon on your desktop, but you may also through a Citrix have the icon available. So you can see here that I do have some test icons, but it'd be very similar to what you're seeing here. And so once you launch and do your sign on, you'll be presented with a menu, and it's very similar if you access Meditech currently. You have a menu of options to choose from, and as James mentioned earlier, you have 3 platforms really to an area of focus. And so for today's discussions, I'm just going to jump into the WebAcute status board just to showcase a couple more items, piggybacking off of what James had showcased. So right away, you come to what's known as the rounds patients. So any patients that are associated to you as a physician will be presented with a list. Right now, I'm signed in as the test physician, but you can see I have 103 patients associated to my care right now. And so if I were to click on rounds patient, I will see a list of options, and these are 5 of the most recent lists that you have accessed. So it keeps a memory, as you could say, kind of like a Google search. But just know that anytime you want to go to all the lists that are available, and these are Meditech standard lists, they'll be there. So if I was to choose, I wanted to see the discharged patients, it would bring me to my list of discharged patients. If I wanted to double back to my rounds list, I could just click back on the title field here and it would bring me back to the rounds patient list. And I would be able to see my patients. Now, James had demoed and showcased that he was covering for Dr. James Lane. So if I were to go back in, because I'm still looking at Dr. Lane's list as well as mine, I could just hide that coverage and it'll bring me back to I'm overseeing 94 patients. So there's lots of flexibility in how you can manage some of these lists, but I'm going to continue to move on. I know I'm overseeing 94 patients, and I wanted to just bring you over to this side menu here. And so just like our rounds patient lists here that keeps a memory of the last 5 lists that I've looked at, the reference range on the right-hand side shows a bit of activity, and it shows my recently accessed list. So I believe there's could be up to 30 patients that as you go in and out of charts, it will keep a record of the most current working backwards of the charts that you've accessed. So it's a really nice feature in that it saves you from going into this find patient field or toggling through if you have, you know, 100 or so patients on your list. You can quickly get to them from this reference range here. And so I just wanted to let you know that that's available. Now, in our general session, you did see James type in manually to find the patient, and you can do that by a variety of ways, by account number, health card number, name, etc. But for the purpose of our demo, because I know we only have an hour together, I'm just going to jump into this MD inpatient for, it's on my recently accessed list, and I'm just going to quickly jump into the chart. knowing that on the right-hand side, this reference range stays pinned, so no matter where you are navigating within the chart, that area will stay as a quick reference, of course. And so what I thought I would do is just take you into actually documenting another note. So say I'm a hospitalist, I've just come on shift, I've looked at my rounds list, and now I'm going to see this patient in patient 4. So I've clicked into their chart, and I quickly have done an assessment, and I want to document. So I'm going to quickly go into a document. Maria, sorry, had mentioned when you favorite a list, just notice how when I come back in here, that respirology consult stays as a favorite. But if I wanted to see a whole list of templates that are available, again, there's a show all feature here, which brings me back to that master templated forum, listing out all the available templates in alphabetical order, starting from left to right. And you can see that there's many. So it would take quite a bit to scroll through. But in this case, if I just wanted to quickly search for hospitalist note, I can quickly start to type in hospitalist, and I can see that there's 2 available notes. I'm going to go ahead and just star those as favorites. And I'm just going to jump right into the progress note. If I want to jump back out of the note, I can quickly just select save. So even though I've just started my note, I don't want to do a final sign off. So I'm just going to select save. And what happens is it puts my draft note into this holding area. So you can see that I've started this note. It's there ready for me to jump back to at any time because we get busy. So we're not always able to finish our note, but at least you can get it started. Notice how when I jump back to our main documentation section, those 3 notes are still available as my favorite. I don't have to see a massive list of templates because these are my favorite. If you are not sure of a note template to use and you want to use a generic, if you started to type in generic, you're going to see that there are some general type templates as well. But with Dragon dictation, you are able to create templates. So these are just some options and opportunities. And of course, we'll be meeting with you when we do further training. We will be able to further define the needs of your group or what you personally prefer. So I'm just going to jump back into my hospital progress note just to complete off this note. I'm ready to do so. So notice how my note is broken down into subjective and objective section, assessment and plan, procedures, and medical decision making. So this is the body of my note. And notice how there's some body buttons here. So as I go into these sections, literally the body buttons above mimic exactly those sections. So once I start to document within a note, I just want to bring your attention to beside the name of the note. So this is a hospital progress note. On the right-hand side, there's this faint letter icon, and this is basically allows you to see what the output of this note is going to look like before it actually gets formalized through the interface and officially sent out. So it's a nice way to view your note and how it looks before doing your final save of the note. So right now I'm just going to do a little bit of dictation. I've done an assessment on my patient, and so I'm just going to launch through my mobile app on my phone and document some subjective and objective findings. My normal progress note. And so I just want to make sure that I'm connected. And bear with me. I know we were having some internet connections. That's why I've closed my video screen. Sometimes the bandwidth. So let's just try that again. I'm just going to go back in draft, come back into my note, make sure I'm connected. Here we go. My normal progress note. So right now, my connectivity has dropped, but if I had some canned text, some quick text available, I could quickly launch my quick text. So I just want to show you a feature that you can actually create templates for yourself. And so in this scenario, I'm going to just type in the CAP. It's very similar to if you have smartphones where you can do some quick text. So in here, I'm just going to do CAP space, and you can see I can pre-program some text information that allows me to quickly do some quick text. I can also, under this little A with a line, there's canned text. So there are some additional notes that can be pre-templated, and these would be created by the application specialist team. So if I had a gastrointestinal prefabbed note template, we can do that as well. So I'm just going to click a little lower and show you the third option is that in this formatted data, if I wanted to pull in specific data, say for example vital signs, I'm going to go ahead and click vital signs, and on this patient there is not any vital signs, but had there been any vital signs, it would just display here. So with the actual additional sections within my note, I could continue to document onward. Notice how the assessment and plan section automatically pulls in my problem. And we talked a little bit about problems with James, and so these are active problems on the patient's list. And notice how they are already preset to come into the note, and they can either be updated through clicking the problem, which would launch the same way as if I clicked on the problem here, and we can add in a note. So for example, if this patient also had hypertension, let's say. So as long as I start to type in the search field, I will be listed with a variety of searches, basically to what I'm searching here. So if I were to do hypertension, I can go ahead and say I want that as my active problem on this visit. As soon as I select save, it will pull it on to my active problems as well as onto my problems within my note. So once I have gone forward and through my doc section, so there's a procedure section here, I can add additional information, and again, just for testing and time, I'm just going to go ahead and just click a couple items, as well as, and I know Maria showcased this within our general session here, if there was a particular scale that you used, again, that could be built out. And so now I'm at the point where I want to do a final save of my note. So to go and have a preview, a quick preview of what that note output could look like, I can see it within this view screen here. And I can go ahead and sign right away, even though I'm in the this preview screen, but I'll just go ahead and unclick it, and it shows that it takes you right back to the note, so you're able to add additional documentation. So now I'm just going to do the final save of this note. In the submit, it allows me to add additional co-signers if I needed to on this note. It also allowed me to add additional physicians to be copied on this note. Any physicians that are associated to this patient's registration will be displayed here, and you can allow, just click on those physicians and they will be copied. You can also add additional physicians. So if I wanted to add Maria Ma, onto this note, I can go ahead and add her. And if I also wanted to add Dr. Lane, I can do that as well. And so you can add many different providers as well as now I know from outside locations, if the physicians were not available within this lookup, we are looking to see how we pull those physicians in, or what the mechanism is to report that that physician's not available to choose from. Because I do realize in your dictation right now that although you identify that, other individuals will seek and make that available on the output of that chart. So just know, or output of that report. So just know that that is being looked at as we speak. So I'm going to go ahead and sign. And now what it requires is my pen. So this is my electronic signature. And so I'm going to go ahead and sign that note. And it has now dropped off the mid-body of my documentation section. So if I were to go to the chart, it would be available in my provider notes. And now please note that it will take a moment or two to get through the interface and to formalize in that note output. But you can see though that I am able to see it in draft version. And if I were to go ahead and click on it, a viewing screen will appear showing you the output of that note and what that note output looks like. And so notice on the left hand of my screen as well, it's also going to show me other notes that are available that I haven't previewed. So I can go ahead and click on those notes, and it's a nice viewing feature. But I'm going to go ahead and close that note, and notice how even though I was in that viewing section, it showed the notes that I was previewing even though I was within that window. So it recognizes you as a user signed on to the session that you have seen this information. And so I think that is it for me. Are there any questions?
Okay.
Okay.
If you think of any, just throw them in the chat. We can always come back to it. Okay, so I will take over from order sets, and we'll go over ordering again in the physician systems. Before we get started, is there anything anybody wanted to review specifically when it came to order entry, or anything you want to see, and I can show you if it's available in the system before we start into a demo? Okay. Um, so we'll just kind of do a little bit of a refresh. So again, keeping in mind that now that we're in a system and we're going from, paper PPOs into an electronic system, we're getting rid of that transcription piece now, right? So we always have to think of orders as it needs a direction. So it needs a direction of where to go. It needs to be feasible for you as the ordering provider. It needs to make sense, but it also needs to make sense to the receiver of that order. And the order will go directly where it needs to go in the system now. So as soon as you submit a lab order, it goes to the lab to say, hey, this is going to come your way, and it goes to the nurse to say, hey, this needs to be collected, etc. So it knows the direction it needs to go. So just always keep that in mind. Once you get access to the system, like I said in the general demo, one of the first things you're going to want to do just to make it like a little bit easier as we get closer to go live is go through the order sets and start to pick what are your favorites, or go through some of those independent orders and start to pick some things that you guys use a lot to start up with. And then that way that'll be the first things you'll see when you come into your enter screen. So order sets, like I said, we have convenience sets, which are those smaller sets, so like the analgesics, antipyretics that I showed earlier, but also, there's routine lab tests where I can go in there and have those easily available for me, or standard IV solutions if I needed to give my patient a bolus or start them on maintenance therapy. So there's always things outside that you'll get used to as well as you start to look through the order sets. And like I said, as we get closer to go live, we'll be releasing a list of the order sets to the chiefs, and the chiefs will be sharing that with the department. So you'll kind of know ahead of time what you'll be able to have access to in the system. And then we'll have our big admission sets as well, which we went over in the original demo. What I wanted to show today too is, for example, something like a COPD, so something that would have a care plan associated with it, will also be available on the order set. So that will be a part of the underneath patient care. You will see it as a care plan. You'll be able to order it and initiate it. It'll go over to the nurse's work list. Right now, we just have a placeholder because our advanced clinical team is working on the content right now, but you'd be able to see that care plan from there as well, that it again would go to the nurse's work list. Another thing that I wanted to show you guys in the smaller group is that you're able to kind of personalize independent orders. So I will show you here, for example, I have gone and I have favorited a independent insert GI tube order. But if you actually go into it, if I click on once, it's already pre-populated to me to weight in nasogastric and for nutrition, because let's say I know that's the majority of the time why I'm ordering the GI tube. So I have kind of pre-filled it, and then I have favorited it. So I will show you kind of how I did that. So if you go into orders and you go into an independent order, so again, if we were to go to, let's try the GI tube. I don't know if it'll let me do it again. But GI tube, insert and maintain, if I go down, you can see it's pre-populated. But if I were to unfavorite it, it would show up as a blank. So these sections would be blank in when I originally pull it up. And I would have to fill out these instructions. I'd have to explain what type of tube it is, and there's all these options. So again, if I wanted my weighted, and I'm going to say my reason for tube is going to be for nutrition. And then if I fill this out in the independent order section and I favorite it, and I say, yes, I want it to start, it'll always kind of go to today and now. When I favorite it, that's what will appear on my favorite screen. And once it's on your favorite screen, you can still edit it. So I can still go in there and say, actually, we're going to do it to suction now, decompression, and I'm going to have tube suction, and I just want intermittent on it. So you're able to go in and change your favorites as well. But if you do realize you're ordering independent orders more frequently than others, that is something that you can do. Right now, you cannot do that in order sets at the moment. We're working closely with Meditech to see if that is something that's feasible, that we can kind of pre-populate order sets, or you can pre-populate order sets depending on your most frequently orders. But right now, we don't have that functionality in the test system to show you. But again, we're working closely with Meditech to show. So that could also help if we're able to do that. So fingers crossed. But yeah, other than that, we have our sets. You'll get used to your sets. You'll get used to your independent orders. Always keep in mind that outside of an order set, you can order anything. You can order multiple order sets at once. So, if I was critical care, for example, if I do a critical care admit, just go to my favorite. If I say like critical care admission, I'm going to fill this out. And as I fill this out, I realize, actually my patient's on a ventilator as well. I can go ahead and activate the critical ventilation management order set and fill that out as well. And I would be able to submit something. I would be able to submit all of this at the same time. So you can submit order sets on top of order sets. You can also submit order sets with independent orders. So if I was looking here and I said like, I need something else. Maybe I need like I have restraints here, but something outside of it. If again, I wanted that GI tube, I guess, just because we talked about it. I can order that as well and order it on top of it. So there's a couple things you can do in regards to like stacking orders as well. Another thing we can always do is if you go into your current order tab, this is always a place that you can oversee kind of what we have waiting to go. So anything new you haven't submitted yet. And it'll always tell you how many orders you're going to be submitting. So how many independent orders you'll be submitting, it will be highlighted in red. If it's red, that means you have orders that you have not fully submitted yet. So you'll always have to do that. And then once you go in there, it'll ask you if I go to save it. Well, what's this here? If anything, it'll flag you if something's not fully done yet and why you need to go in to do it. This is because I've changed it a couple times now. Do I want to do a reflex? Sure.
So that's a nice fail-safe feature. If there's
Yeah.
anything that was required, the system won't allow you to save it until that's been identified.
Mm-hmm. It's just asking me to do order the feed at the moment, but okay.
And don't want, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's just one more field, the intermittent time
Oh,
and rate.
sure. For now. But you'll see once it's ready to go, it'll be all highlighted in green. And then again, it'll tell you to save. If I go to save it, it's going to ask me for my PIN. You will be assigned an independent PIN and you can change your PIN as necessary. And this will be basically your electronic signature. And so now all those orders have gone and they have pushed to the appropriate people. If I go into historical, I can go in and again, see what's on chart. Yeah, that's kind of what I have. Is there anything else you want to see or anything, uh, Adriana or Nadine, you can think to showcase?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, for sure. Hmm. Just go to PO. It's going to tell me what I have available. Again, anytime you see a number, you're able to go in and manipulate that. But let's say I want to do, 500 PO, Q4H, PRN, maximum of this, and say in, and I can go ahead and favorite that as well. And then it will be, I want to say that it start today now if I were to go ahead and do that. And then if I go back to my favorites, it will be there. Hmm. Okay. Sure. Let's say QID. Mm-hmm. With the stop. Like you want me to? Yeah. Mhm. I like. Yep. And
Everyone is quiet.
it's a lot.
It's so quiet.
It's a lot of information at once, especially if this is the first time you're seeing the system. So I know it can be overwhelming, but if there's anything you want to see or anything that you've been working on that if you helped with any of the order sets, go ahead, Cameron.
Hey everybody, thanks for the presentation. I was wondering if you guys can comment, and it's okay if this maybe isn't the right session, but I'm a physician assistant, and I was wondering if there's any, or I guess will this process be the same for physician assistants in terms of doing order entry?
So from a workflow perspective, yes, like as long as you can put in orders, like whatever orders you can put in, you'll be putting in through this screen. And I think the workflow in regards to if it needs to be signed off, et cetera, depending on, I believe you work under medical directives at RVH, if it needs to kick up to the other provider you're working with, then I believe that would go into the hold queue, but I don't know if that's been finalized yet. Adriana or Nadine?
Yeah,
Putting the
it's sign queue.
or sorry, sign queue.
Do you want do you want me to show you?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Nadine.
Okay. So let me just share my screen. So I know, Erin, on your screen, your sign queue here was empty. You can see here on my black navigation bar so say if I was the most responsible physician for the patient that you were overseeing, whatever orders that you may have placed, if it was required that I needed to sign off on, it would appear here. Now I have 21 whether they're documents. Now I'm just going to close this section a little bit, but you would see documents and orders. Now I don't have any orders, but I do have documents that I need signing off. But orders would appear here, and I would be able to go in very similar to this and go in and basically sign off on the order or reject it. So I could just, in this case, I'm just going to show you how I would sign off, and then I would use my PIN to sign off. So it would be very similar for any orders that would bounce back to me as the most responsible physician overseeing that patient.
Yeah, can I just clarify that? So so if I said as depending on how it's set up, if I entered an order on a physician's behalf, it would automatically get enacted without having the physician to co-sign. Is if it ends up I guess if that would be possible for that to happen if that's how things are set up.
Yes, I believe so. And it's very similar to nursing. So in nursing, if we have a telephone or verbal order, those orders could still get activated. It still comes to me as a physician to sign off, but it's very similar on paper if you think about it. So if a nurse took a verbal or telephone order for a physician, they're writing on behalf of the physician on the papered order section, and those orders are being processed. But with myself as a physician coming back in and then signing off. So it does mimic current state, but ideally, there are checks and balances in place.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, just as long as from a workflow perspective, from my end, as long as if I can put in an order and make sure that happens and in real time or as it would now, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And again, as we're building up the system, that'll be one of the things that we will be testing as well to see, to make sure and ensure the functionality.
That's great. Thanks.
Are there any other questions?
No, I didn't, but Nadine, yeah, Nadine, can you
Okay.
pull?
So actually, let me just go into this patient's chart. I'm on patient 3. We'll see if we have some medications. No, I'm just going to close, and I'm going to go back into our demoing patient here. And I know that there were some medications already ordered on that patient, so I can quickly go into the MAR a couple different ways. I can click the medications tab and select MAR, but also at any time during this navigation bar, I can click on menu, and I would have the ability to see MAR here. Now, my test physician that I'm signed in on doesn't have that because it's not a true physician, but I will choose just to go here just to showcase what that typical MAR would look like here. And we can see that the acetaminophen insulin has been ordered on this patient, and we've been negligent here. This is the test environment, but we are overdue, as you can see with this red highlighted areas that the medications have not been given. But you can see here that we have the med with some dosing instructions. We do have some label comments that do print out on the medication label. And if there was any ordering instruction or dose instructions per se, we would see those here, or the nursing staff would see those here. And there are some other functionalities within the acknowledging when medications have been ordered on behalf of the physician, and some icons that allow to see any protocols or detailed information regarding medication. But as a physician, you're able to see what that MAR looks like. Sure can. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Ye- Nadine, can you just show the PRNs and just Dr. Young was just asking where she'd see that. So you'd see there and then
So
it would
there's
be
no PRNs right
y-
now,
y-
but
it
they
would be
would
the
show up.
same view. It would just show you when the nurse gave it, the time. Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry. This is the order. Sorry, it's active, and this is the active PRN.
Yeah.
Sorry
And
about that.
it would have the time and then when it was given underneath the today with the nurse that gave it. Yes. Or anything else about the status board or documentation, anything? Again, I know we're throwing a lot at you guys, so it's a little overwhelming.
If there are just any of the questions that were asked during our 3 days of demoing, introductory, will be posted and shared, just because you may walk away from these sessions and think to yourself, oh, there's some additional questions that may come to mind. And so at any time, we'll do a follow-up communication and put a link in there that any emails, questions can come back to us, and we'll make sure that we address any of those and also share some of the questions and answers and common themes that were asked during our 3 sessions, general sessions, as well as the breakout sessions. Well, on behalf of our team, oh,
Hi, it's Jennifer Young. I'm just you went quickly over the thing that most um, um, I know that we'll have to work with it, but when you make a note, if you want to have imported the vital signs, could you just show how to do that again?
Oh, absolutely. Yep, no
Import vital
problem.
signs and import most recent lab work.
Okay. So I just want to, let me just go here. Okay. Oops, let me go back into my document. There we go. I can see there's other, I am in many places. There are, during our sessions, we have got a couple breakout sessions, so we are using the same position here. So I'm just going to go ahead and show all notes, and I'm just going to pull in, let me pull in that hospitalist progress note ago.
Yeah,
Note
yeah.
again. And so earlier, let's see if this will work here again. My apologies, I was unable to demo the dictation here. So let me just see if I can do my normal progress note. So I've been disconnected, but that being said, I can just copy and paste into a note. So I just wanted to showcase that if you happen to have documented some clinical findings, you can do a copy and paste type feature. But also I wanted to show you earlier, this A is like a reference area. And so see where there's formatted data, we can build templates. So here was one called Abnormal Labs for the entire visit, and another was called Vital Signs. So we can connect to outputs of data to pull into your notes. So I'm going to go ahead and try and do the Abnormal Labs, and there aren't any particularly on this patient that I could map and pull in, but it would be there within this formatted data section. Now I will try and do the vital signs, and although as you saw just before I went into this note, I did go into the chart to see if there was nursing vitals, and there were, but again, this is a test patient and test environment, so there are things that are being worked on multiply within the back end, and so sometimes it doesn't pull the way we had anticipated. So, but just know that that feature can pull in that information into your note.
And can you have, so if you've got your favorite, you said on the dictation, my normal note, could you have my normal note, and then the normal note would also typically include vitals, or do you have to enter it each time?
So that, yeah, that would be, and if where there's bracketed fields for you to enter in information, that's a manual input. Like if I were to, let's see, my apologies, I wish I could um, show this. My positive pneumonia. My positive pneumonia. So it's not defaulting into my note here, but anywhere where there's the square brackets where you were anticipating information to drop in, you would have to dictate to that piece. It's only from my knowledge, and I'll take that back, but that formatted data, that's where it actually links internally to pull those fields of data into your note. So it wouldn't necessarily be from a templated component of the Dragon dictation template, but it would be from this formatted data because it has to be mapped to the data in the underside. We did, but there just seems to be a disconnect tonight. And we found that in our general session as well. So even under our nursing, I do know that there's vital signs on this patient, but it's just, oh, go ahead. Mhm. Oh, sorry. I got too click happy there. Okay, save data. Oh, okay. There's something going on today. So I guess, but that's excellent. Thank you, Adriana. I'm happy about that. Mhm. 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 No, it didn't come through. Sorry. Save data. Thank you. Insert. And I can also say keep. I just noticed. Yeah. Yeah. And so let me just go back to do that. It drops it off, so I'd have to go back. So there are some things that obviously, again, we are still in the building phase of building the system. And so I'm glad we actually talked about that because that's definitely something that we will bring back and formalize further. Hmm 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 There is one feature that we can end off with. I know we only have a couple people on the call, is if you wanted, notice how we're only in one chart, but what if you wanted to have two simultaneous sessions open? So you're sorry, you are entering some information on your note per se, but you also visually want to open another window to reference for um, more information basically while you're doing your note. On the menu, there is what's called a chart viewer. So notice how, because we're in a web application, there is one tab that is open. If I click on menu and say chart viewer, what it does essentially is it launches another half or window of that chart in the same patient though. So it's not two separate patients, but what you can do is pull that window down and you can see here that if I were to um, manipulate my screens, you could see that you could essentially have two windows operating at the same time. So I could be documenting in my note, but also visually clicking around the chart. And if I want to close that chart viewer, notice on the tab it's called chart viewer. I just easily close that section and I'm back still on my chart and I haven't officially closed out of that patient's chart and can continue on and then sign off the note. So there are some nice features with having the Expanse being like a web application. Well, I think that brings us to our time with 5 minutes remaining. Are there any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your feedback, and if you have any more questions, again, please feel free to reach out to your team, our team, at any time, and we look forward to working with you more in the future.